morning. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners, August 21st, 2018. And we'll stand and say pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we look at the agenda. Is there any changes or?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the agenda. Second.
All right, we've got a motion for approval and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And we'd like to invite George Leary up here today. We've got our Planning and Zoning Land Use Administrator. And we've got well, actually only one business item, I think.
Yes.
This morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, George. Morning.
Morning, George.
Okay. So we've got that PC 18-18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 18-18 is a request from Mitch Abbas. His request for review and approval of the final plat of the Mitch Abbas subdivision number 2, a replat of Outlot A of the Mitch Abbas subdivision. The request will divide the previously described Outlot A into 4 individual outlots. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in parts of the northern and southern halves of the southeast quarter of Section 17, Cambria Township. Mr. Leary presented the staff report. The applicant was present and made no further comment. There was little discussion by the Planning Commission and no public comment. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is a resolution.
Okay, so do I open this up for public comment?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to open up this public hearing for public comment. And during this portion, anybody that would like to make a comment or ask any questions, just come on up to the microphone there at the podium and state your name and where you live. And then ask or tell us what you'd like. Is there anybody here that would like to get up and say a few things about the plan for the subdivision? One more time, anybody else here in the audience that would like to get up and ask a question or make a comment? Okay, well, we're going to close the public hearing or comment portion of this and bring it back to the board then for recommendations.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval from Commissioner Purvis and a second from Commissioner Brunder. And is there any board comments or any questions?
I don't have any comments. It's pretty straightforward at the Planning and Zoning meeting.
Yeah.
As George already said, there was no comments and everything went well.
Good, yeah. I had a few and George helped clear them up. For some reason in my mind, I thought that when you had outlots, they had to specifically be tied to regular lots. And they don't have to be.
That's correct.
Yeah, I was operating under a misunderstanding. So thank you for that. And any other comments?
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, George.
Okay, we've got our Chief Deputy, Mike Maurer, here today. Come on up, Mike, and he's also our Emergency Management Director. Oversees that book that he's got in his hand.
Morning, Mike.
Good morning. So you want us to approve the updates?
Yes.
Sounds like.
Every year I come before you about this time of year within a couple weeks, and as part of our emergency operations plan, we have to update it yearly, and the board has to approve it. The updates have been made. The guidelines are set by the state of Minnesota and the MNWAC. We have to follow those guidelines to receive our EMPG grants, some of our hazardous mitigation grants, and even some of the FEMA grants if we don't have all of the policies, procedures, and guidelines in place. So I'm here to ask you to approve the updates.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval and second in stereo. Jesse probably has one of you guys picked out, I'm sure.
There it is.
Any comments or questions?
I don't think I have any. Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Updates.
I know I had a couple, and then you helped, just kind of clarify them a little bit. I know that I've seen it before many times, but years ago I did try looking through that thing one time, and there's a lot of stuff. We had an exercise, though, which I kind of miss out on a little bit. What was that, 5 years ago, I bet?
Yeah, we had a thing where
We all the elected officials came, and we went downtown to Civic Center, and they had a kind of an exercise, and kind of get more of a, like, what if a tornado 5 hit like Mankato or something, what would we do? Because I always wonder we've got all these plans, and you always think about the practical side. When if something weird happened that we weren't expecting, And do you as the director, are there those kind of activities that go on for you folks?
Oh yes, we put on an event every year. We have exercises every year. I want to make it real clear. We went to a course. This was a couple, 3 years ago, when the director of emergency management in Hennepin County was a former military officer, and he made a real good comment, because I said we can put all the plans in place, those especially that have been in law enforcement. We can have plans for everything, but you have to be prepared for what really happens. I can plan for a tornado, but I can tell you we better be prepared for a lot of different things that go with it. And he was very adamant. They planned for 2 years for Operation Desert Storm, and about 24 hours into it, their plans were nothing what they expected, and they had to go on what they had prepared to do. So, and that's the same thing that we work off of every day. We can plan all kinds of exercises. All we're doing is trying to get the right people to the table that need to make decisions, to know what decisions that will have to be made in a short period of time. But I cannot tell you how much I have to prepare for what's going to happen that we can't plan for, because you don't know the path, you don't know what's going to be affected, you don't know. You can have all sorts of transportation plans, and you can't have when all the trees go down, you can't get there to make it work.
Blocks all the roads.
So
like St. Peter.
The plan is more of just something to review every year. It's got all of our contacts in it. Who do we call if we need this? Who do we need that? It's got a lot of federal and state language that's required, but is a little difficult to follow if you were trying to do it in the time of disaster. But it meets the requirements, and but we do a lot of preparing in lieu of planning. They need to work together.
Right. And now, technically, this large set of documents, really, the whole plan, is not for public digestion, is it? We have worked really hard to get numbers that we need, a lot of 24-hour contacts, a lot of addresses and stuff. It was very difficult for people to get if they found they weren't going to give it that if it was going to be a public document. So we've chosen to make it a non-published document. There's pieces in there that could be public. I don't have any problem with that, but there's so much of it that we just ran into a lot of difficulty with people saying, well, I don't want my home phone number. I don't want to give you this number. I don't want to give you that number. And those are numbers that you need at 3 o'clock in the morning. You just don't want to have them available to anybody.
Yeah.
And then this comes through the federal Homeland Security, down to the Minnesota Homeland Security, and then to the Department of Public Safety. From what I understand, I mean, this is Homeland Security requirements that we're doing all these things.
The FEMA sets guidelines, HSCM sets guidelines, and then we as local can there's guidelines of what we need to have in the plan, and then we can add additional things to it. But we have to have, there's certain requirements that are in the Minnewauk that have to be in the plan, and those are in there. And then we can add things that we feel that are needed for our local level.
Yeah. I tried to drill it down a little bit. I don't know how it was received, but I was thinking about my own neighborhood, what kind of needs did we have? I live in Lincoln Park. We're kind of on a plateau, so I was thinking of disasters or whatever, but a little bit below, down here more on the downtown area, is an apartment that has, it's called Durham Apartments, has 40 units, and everybody in there is handicapped. And I've often wondered if there was some unusual disaster, if they're included in a plan. And I think that you indicated that it might be more the cities, under the city's plan, because that would be a portion of that plan, but it would be the city's responsibility to have that identified somehow, maybe, or?
They would have, like I explained to you, I said, we put transportation plans, evacuation routes, contacts, but each facility, like nursing homes, and
They have to have their own.
they have to have their own plan on how they would move, because we don't know what the level of care these patients are receiving. So you go into a nursing home, and if this is a critical care patient, I don't know how that person has to be moved versus the one right next door to them. So they have to have their plans in place. We can get them lined up with the transportation needed, or aid them. But that's really, they are all prepared for that. We've met with them and we've talked to
Those
them.
long-term care facilities.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And then, well, thank you. I just sometimes trying to drill it down. And every year, I usually get, I'd say every year or two, when this comes up, somebody will contact me and want to know something about the plan, and you know what I mean? They give me a call. And this also includes reactions to outbreaks, doesn't it? Is it part of the plan?
Well, there's portions, or then it would send it to public health.
It would.
Part of their plan. So
Okay.
we work directly with public health to put the pieces in this plan that we need, and then public health has their infectious disease plans and some of those.
Yeah, because I remember talking with Bob. Several people had contacted me, just two in our community, during that Ebola outbreak, and they were concerned about what happens if somebody traveled to Mankato and brought Ebola. Do we have a plan? And we do. We've got plans in place. The state of Minnesota has plans. Trying to reassure the public is hard, and some counties have developed, as part of that plan, a more digestible document, that helps explain some of the details without giving away all the information that you might not want them to have. And I was hoping, I don't know if we've done that yet, but I was hoping that our county could do that someday. Could actually have a digestible document that might be upgraded or renewed and looked at each time our big document is, that's specifically for public viewing. We could even have it on our website. I know we've got several pages of things, but to actually have a document that's put together in sort of a format that would flow and that would answer some of their questions. I know it takes work to do it, but I was hoping that someday that could be done. I wanted to tell you that.
Okay. You would have to break that down. I would have to know what your expectation or what someone's expectation was of that, because there's different places for different things. So,
I know.
I mean, I have this document I would take nowhere with me. It's too large and it would be impossible to follow. Do I have a broken down version in my car? Yes, I do, but there again, that goes into specifics that, phone numbers, because really all we're doing is a resource locator at that point. I can't cut somebody's tree out of somebody's yard or off of somebody's roof, but I can find somebody that can.
Yeah.
I can't stop the Ebola, I can't force the quarantine, but I can work with somebody that can from the emergency management standpoint. I have a little different, because I have a law enforcement role also, so I have some cross roles there, but in a lot of situations, the emergency management director has no law enforcement affiliation, so that has no authority to do some of the things that I have based on my other role.
And I know, Bob and I reviewed some of these things, was it a couple of years ago, Bob?
Probably.
Yeah, that the role of law enforcement, if it comes down, let's say, from the state of Minnesota, and it's because there's an outbreak or something, we would need law enforcement to enforce quarantines. If somebody's not obeying, they've been asked to stay home or they've been asked to not go out.
We'd also need a governor's order.
Yeah, so they would be quarantined without their consent if they're not, because it could impact a huge, community. A lot of different things in there, a lot of pieces. So, any other comments or questions?
I don't have any.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Okay, now we've got Craig Austinson, our ditch manager. This ditch manager's report.
Morning, Craig.
Morning, Craig.
Good morning. Hi, Craig.
Good morning.
We have two items here today. First item is pretty straightforward. We need to set a hearing date for a repair hearing on County Ditch 28, which is in a good portion of Lincoln Township. We're recommending that the hearing date be set at 9 a.m. September 11th, 2018, here in the Commissioner's room.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a Motion here on the table. Any comments or questions?
Nope, just setting the date at this time, so.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries for September 11th, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then we've got ditch.
This is, yeah, we have actually a bid award on County Ditch 35. We have Kyle Salmons from ISG here to answer any questions you may have regarding this bid award. So if you have any questions or Kyle has any comments here.
Morning, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
Kyle.
Kyle Salmons with ISG. Excuse me. Here to discuss the bid award for Blue Earth County Ditch number 35 repairs. The repairs are to place a culvert, sort of crossing, I guess, if you want to say, alongside 584th Avenue. The soil conditions and I guess, yeah, mostly the soil conditions and the ditch conditions are causing the township road to sort of slough in. So we put a plan together and put it out for public bid with two options. One option is a 60-inch culvert crossing. The other option would be a 72-inch culvert crossing, just to kind of get two separate little bids. The plan is not to have this as a major crossing for farm equipment. It is strictly there for to stop the road from sloughing in. We've done this on numerous projects where bad sloughs are happening, and it works really well. The first option, bid alternate number 1, the engineer's estimate was $77,089.19. Bruns Construction Company came in with a low bid of $69,247. Reynoldt Excavating, I believe is how you say it, came in second with $90,991.46. The last and final bid was Hodgman Drainage at $133,195. Again, that's for the 60-inch culvert option. Bid alternate number 2, engineer's estimate was $117,191.91. Bruns Construction came in with a low bid of $271. Reynoldt came in second with $126,548.90, and then Hodgman Drainage again was the high bid, $169,531. At this time, we would recommend awarding it to Bruns Construction for bid alternate number 1. After talking with Bruns Construction, they do plan on using a triple wall polypropylene option that we put in as within bid alternate number 1. It's basically like the dual wall main line, except it's got an outside liner. It's also polypropylene, so it's a really, really strong material. Talking with Bruns, the completion date, Craig, do you remember? September 30th, it's in there.
Yeah.
Bruns Construction says they cannot make the September 30th deadline if we go with alternate number 2. They say that the lead time for the manufacturing of the concrete pipe is 10 to 12 weeks. However, the triple wall pipe is sitting up in the cities right now ready to be shipped. So, and they did say they could get that done. We would also stress that hardly any leniency would be given on this completion date. This road needs to be fixed pretty much before harvest. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
What would be your recommendation as to which one we should do?
I would recommend bid alternate number 1.
Okay, so the smaller,
The smaller of the two, yep. The crossing is designed as what we call a low flow crossing. So the ditch banks are still higher than the crossing itself. So if the water does back up in that 60-inch pipe, it can go over the top. And it's protected by a Category 6 erosion control blanket and good strong seed mix that'll have deep root systems.
and Bruns is all ready to do this one.
They're ready to do it I believe when they have one more project ahead of this one. But I asked Tom Bruns, and he said the completion date is not a problem if we go with the 60-inch option.
I'd move to approve bid alternate number 1 for Bruns Construction.
Second?
Okay. We've got a motion and a second for doing a repair out there on ditch number 35 and awarding the bid to Bruns Construction for Plan 1 or alternate number 1. Is there any more comments, questions? Anybody? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you guys
Very much, yeah.
Thanks for all your work on this.
Absolutely. Enjoy doing it.
Nice. Next this morning, we've got Phil Clausen. He's our Human Services Director, and he's going to come up and give us a Human Services report. Morning, Phil.
Morning, Phil.
Morning, Phil.
Morning.
This is kind of different when you're solo all the time.
I know. Well, that's about to change. We're gonna.
You know, it's like we're missing a
what's
lot.
going on?
Right. I wish.
Sorry, Phil, but
Darren's probably going to be back. I don't know about next month, but we start up again with our Human Service Advisory Committee, so I'll have company. Partner. We need partners, don't we? Commissioners, I have a very short board report, no action items, Mr. Chair, for today. Just a couple of data sets to share with the board and any discussion or further information that the board might request. Two items are, the first one being adult foster care statistics, and you'll see in the slide for this area that our adult foster care covers developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, brain injury, folks with chemical dependency, mental illness, and the elderly. And obviously a lot of folks we serve have more than one of those categories that they're dealing with as part of their day-to-day story. You'll see that there's two types of licensing. The family adult foster care, which is really somebody doing this out of their home. They're not setting up as a corporation. They don't usually employ staff, and so it's a much more smaller scope. And you'll see that we have a total of 29 beds in our county, and the breakdown of different counties of financial responsibility that use these beds in our community. We're the highest user at 33%, but it is spread between a lot of other counties. In these situations, you're always looking for fit, who your roommate's going to be. It's not different than anyone else of saying, do the combination of people work in a certain setting? And so that's why you see people coming from other places and different combinations. The volume comes in the bottom part of the slide where we talk about corporate adult foster care, and you'll see 370 beds in our county. And those are located in Mankato, Eagle Lake, Lake Crystal, and Pemberton. The majority of those 86 homes with 333 beds being in Mankato proper. We do not have statistics for where people come from. They're trying to make these all accessible beds throughout the state, and so they do not keep statistics as far as who occupies all of those different beds. But it does show you a footprint, and we do obviously act as a hub in this regard. A lot of areas of service, but this is one of our big ones that we have a lot of resource. The next area that I'll just cover that's somewhat related, especially for folks with any kind of disability or qualify as a vulnerable adult, when things go wrong, we have an adult protection unit. We work closely with Pat and his team and the Sheriff Brad and especially Tim Wendler, who is co-located, as you know, right in our shop with our team, and he does a lot of our adult protection as well as child protection resourcing with our team. And he's fully one of our folks, and so I see him coming and going every day, multiple times a day. Our acronyms that we talk about here is the first one. You'll see data supplied by Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center. You might hear of MARC. That's the acronym for that, is MARC, and that's how we do all of our tracking. You'll see that the numbers are somewhat stable. There was a dip down in 2016 where 308 reports were made, but now we're back up again in 17. The breakout is that first bullet where there's 425 reports. 63 of those were screened in and investigated. That represents 15%. And of those 63 that were screened in, 15 were substantiated 18 were determined inconclusive, and 39 were false. There were also 10 that did not meet the criteria for a vulnerable adult. If you do add all those up, it's more than 63 because sometimes we get multiple reports that might report different parts of a allegation, and then we also might have more than one allegation per report. So that's why the numbers get skewed in that regard.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
On these adult abuse reporting stats, it's not just from the foster care, though, is it, Phil? I mean, is there other
No.
reporting that goes on?
Right. No, in fact, I would say that that's probably a small part of the overall pie, but anybody that is concerned, and we encourage people to call, err on the side of reporting, both on child protection and adult protection. A lot of times it really is information seeking, and one of the categories is that somebody wasn't, didn't qualify as a vulnerable adult, and so then they can't have an adult protection report. Well, a lot of people don't know what that criteria is, so it's absolutely appropriate to just call and check it out and say, hey, I have a neighbor, I'm not sure what's going on over there. There's either people coming and going, or they're by themselves, and I'm not sure they're doing very well by themselves. And so it's something we can go check out. And so there's a real service just to kind of doing that information referral and then the screening process as well.
Yeah. And that's changed, hasn't it, Phil?
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago, just give us a little background.
Yeah, well, Mark is the big change, and so it's become state centralized as far as reporting and how that all goes. So when I said that acronym of the Minnesota Reporting Tool, that's new, and that was a big change where everything went centralized to the state and then pushed back out to us. We used to take reports ourselves, and so that was a change in workflow, and I think it's probably why some of the numbers got skewed as well. But that was a big difference. I think in the end, it's probably washed itself through pretty well, that we're starting to stabilize again and probably see things similar to how we did before. But you could certainly argue that the state's involved, so they have a look at it, they kick it to us, we have our team look at it. So, there's more eyes on these situations, which I think is a really good thing, especially when the public might not know all the ins and outs, and so that there's transparency and accountability on a couple levels.
Okay, so we have somebody that looks at it then, too.
Right.
Even though it's supposed to go, if you get a report, it's supposed to go right up to the state.
Right.
Through Mark. We still kind of have some kind of
Well, so they
influence.
they might call us and we'd say you have to call the state, so there could be that channel that they call us first and we say you have to, this is how you report, and that happens on both child protection and adult protection all the time. Once it goes to the state, they end up kicking it back to us, and then we do the full buffet of services of sorting. So we still do all the groundwork on it. It's just really what it is it centralizes the data, standardizes the reporting, and so that's what you're really picking up. And there's times where, we always thought we did a good job, so the extra step, we hope the quality does improve over time because you are adding another layer. The good thing of that is the transparency, the cross-checking, the fact that we're not doing something on an island. And there's been a lot of scrutiny, as we know, about these issues. So, there's pros and cons, I would say. But in the end, I think it's kind of washed through. At first, the system itself didn't flow very well, and people were very uptight about that because we care very much about the work we're doing. People could be in a really bad spot, and we didn't want delays. But I think things are starting to wash through pretty well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I get confused because you've got DHS, who provides the guidelines and licensure and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But I think they do some of their own enforcing on certain types of clients. And then you've got MDH, Minnesota Department of Health.
Right.
And they're required to do certain things for certain types of clients.
Sure.
So I get very confused myself.
Right. It is confusing, and it does go back and forth depending on what kind of licensure you're looking at. But MDH, I always think of primarily if there's food service, so like in foster care, if there's any food, MDH will have a license for health to make sure that all of those pieces are at a standard that are safe. So, the food integrity and the comings and goings, and so their license includes a lot of those operational issues.
Yeah.
The licensure from DHS would be more about what's the mission of the program and all of that. But where the complexity comes in is when you have like corporate foster care. you're correct, DHS would do the investigation if anything goes wrong in there. Whereas when you have family foster care, we're the ones doing it. So there is, yes, so there is some complexity and some complications in that. And even when we do investigations, we still submit our findings back to the state because of how we're structured. So yeah, there's a lot of step ups and steps down. There are advantages to that again because you have more than one person looking at any case, and so some of the quality you could argue would be higher, but it might take longer, or trying to maneuver and understand how to navigate is a little complex.
I know, the reason I'm asking again, because we brought it up once before, but there was a lot of write-ups last winter, regarding long-term care. Yes. And regarding seniors. Right. And MDH was being criticized for that.
Absolutely. Yep.
The response time, the trying to catch up, they had basically almost thousands of reports.
Right. That didn't get followed up on any time, in fact.
And
that was state operated.
And they weren't used to getting so many reports.
Right.
Since before, the counties would triage that and try to figure out which ones were the more important reports to go forward.
Right. Right.
Isn't that how it kind of used to be?
State-operated services, I think, has always been administrated through the state themselves, but I think your backlog part of that story is correct, is that they got way backlogged. Again, you're looking at a situation where somebody might be harmed on a daily basis, and there's no action, it's just sitting there. Yeah. And so the concern around that is just totally valid, that can't happen. And yeah, I always think we're a little more nimble at the county level, at the local level, that we'd be glad to help. The state facility where that happened, we've never been in on that or part of that. But
right.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Right. So I just had a couple other slides here, and this is still along the vulnerable adult lines, just to say how do things break out. And really, I just have one major point here. You'll see how the first pie chart in the 2017 data breaks out, and how self-neglect is overrepresented, by a lot, by a big margin at 60% of the pie. And then really the rest of them are broken down in somewhat equal portions of emotional abuse, physical abuse, a couple of different types of financial exploitation if the person has fiduciary responsibilities over the individual's money, or if they don't. Those are two different categories. And then neglect of a caregiver, which in child protection is one of our bigger areas. So obviously when you get to be an adult, one of the biggest concerns is, are people able to care for themselves? The interesting thing beyond just the straight look at how things break out in our community is the second slide of 2016, and just noticing that in 1 year, we went from 45% of the pie being self-neglect to 60%. That's a huge jump in 1 year. But on a percentage basis too, and I know I've talked to the board about this, the whole financial exploitation has been climbing very rapidly on a percentage basis. As far as how it's represented in the overall pie, it's not as big, but that's another area that we're very concerned with and work with the county attorney on a weekly basis for sure. But this trend line, and I can't tell you I know exactly why that's true, but in 1 year to see that big of an increase, there's no doubt our population is aging. People are, on their own for longer periods of time because we're living longer, and because of that, I suppose you could argue the risk goes up over time. There's more people in that category that might struggle to do self-care. Yeah, exactly. Devolution, right? So, very interesting, but something, 1 year does not make a trend, but it is an interesting statistic, and we'd want to keep looking at that and just considering it. So.
And then the number above it is the actual number of reports that were...
Right, the overall.
So in a community our size, it's maybe not that...
No, that's true too, right. That it can easily be skewed, like you say, when you get a couple more reports that are substantiated, it can skew the overall number dramatically, right? Yeah, probably just that alone, Commissioner shouldn't read too much into it because the sample size isn't very big. That's really all I had.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks. Have a good day. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Phil.
You're moving right along.
Yeah, going fast here.
Administrative services.
Do you recommend anything, Bob? Just going right into administrative services?
I think if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Unless you guys need a break for some reason.
Nope, not ready yet.
Okay.
The first item then, Mr. Chair, is the county board minutes from August 7th.
I'll move the minutes. Second.
We've got a motion and a second for our board minutes from August 7th. Is there any corrections or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Next would be the bills for the 2 weeks shown.
I'll move the bills.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the bills. I've got a couple questions, but
I've got some.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I got a few today. First week, No Ink for $151,935. Equipment purchased.
Those are pole pads that were purchased for our elections work. So there's 99 pole pads along with some other technology associated with those pole pads.
Okay.
Which they used in Eagle Lake last week for the primaries, and they just loved them when I was in there, so just an FYI. I think we'll try and bring some of those into the work session next week and give you a little more firsthand exposure.
It looks amazing. It looks amazing. Next one is second week, AP Midwest LLC. We've got building acquisition and site and grounds improvement. Both of them are $228,000. One's $511,000.
Those are both related to the government center building project.
Okay. Second week, Breeze Ironworks, building acquisition site. I suppose that's all
Same answer.
Same thing for $224,000, $115,000. Next one, Central Specialties, construction projects, $226,945.
The largest portion of that, $180,000, is for overlays, and there's a $46,000 payment on County Road 109. So finishing up that project.
Next one is for Dirt Merchants, building acquisition, site and grounds improvement.
That's the government center project. So
Hey, you know, it's looking really good over there, so that's okay.
they are making progress. We get billed monthly by all of these trades through Kraus Anderson, and so that's why you're seeing
And
all this
I see
activity.
a lot of contract stuff, so I'm going to go through that.
Okay.
Henry Miggs, maintenance contract, $81,000.
That is seal coating, part of
Okay.
the Public Works project.
Icon Constructors LLC,
That is County Road 52 bridge.
all right. Javins Mechanical Contract,
That would be part of the government center project.
all right. Mathewitz Construction Project, I'm sure that's at 12,
That's actually the County Road 1.
County Road 1, all right. Southern Minnesota Construction Project, $460,000.
That's a big one.
That is 12.
That's 12. Okay, that's all I have, Chair.
Okay, yeah. I had a couple of those written down too. I was just kind of curious because they all seem to be written up the same way. You know what I mean? And the 228, you know, it just seemed funny that they were both matched, kind of the grounds and the actual construction matched the price almost exactly. But anybody else have any?
Nope.
I just had a couple. I was just curious about that one in week one. It's the city of Mankato. Maybe it's just pass-through money. I don't know, but membership dues for $15,436.
That is the membership dues for the Mankato Area Planning Organization.
For Maple.
Maple.
Yeah.
That's our fee.
That's our share, yes.
We do have the larger share, but that's...
Okay, interesting. And then that waterfront restoration, it's a construction something services for $15,000.
That is our watercraft inspections as part of our aquatic invasive species grant.
Oh.
So we're trying to prevent the transfer.
The 2 staff that we have out there doing stuff?
Yes.
Okay. And then, there was maybe I asked this one, I wasn't sure, but the Javins Mechanical, is that the one you asked about? It's 149, okay. That was Government Center, I think.
Yes.
I think that's it. Yeah, thank you. We didn't trip them up at all. Yeah. Okay, so any other comments about the bills? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. And now we go on to the Human Resources report, Bob.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, attached to tab 8 is the Human Resources agenda. We have one action item for you today, and that is consideration of modifications to our employee handbook. There is a memo in the packet that describes the recommended changes. These changes are being brought forward for your consideration at this point because of the addition of a high deductible health plan with a health savings account as one of our voluntary health plan options starting next January. Given that we are in the process of conducting educational sessions on this new health insurance offering, we felt that these changes to the employee handbook are needed now so that staff can make fully educated decisions about their health insurance going forward. The changes outlined in the memo basically mirror those negotiated agreements that we have with a number of our bargaining groups. Because of the rising cost of health insurance, we felt we needed to address this issue with our unions. We also felt that it was important that the cost sharing of the premiums needed to be adjusted, which is reflected in the first bullet of the memo. The county has historically provided 100% coverage of single insurance for our employees and 75% coverage of family insurance. We are recommending a change to 90% coverage for single insurance and 70% coverage for family insurance. The second bullet of the memo covers the addition of a high deductible health plan combined with a health savings account. The county would contribute to the employee's health savings account to cover 1/2 of the deductible for both single and family coverage. The third bullet in the memo addresses the fact that one of our current plans has grown to be very expensive, and as such we are recommending that we sunset the enrollment in this plan, meaning that no additional enrollments could occur into the future. To offset some of the cost of health insurance that's being borne by our employees, we are recommending the change to the pay scale by adding 2 steps. One step would be added to the top of our scale, thereby providing employees with additional earning power. In addition, we are recommending an additional step be added to the bottom of the scale to offset some of our future increased labor costs. Also included in the memo is a slight change to the vacation accrual schedule. The change basically dropped a 0 to 1 year category and changed it to a 0 to 5 year accrual. So basically in that first year, there would be a slight increase in vacation accrual for our new employees. And then lastly, as a retention tool, we have proposed a payout of a portion of accrued sick leave for employees after 20 years of service with the county. Again, these changes are in line with our union agreements and help bring equity across all of our employee groups. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I'll move approval.
Second?
We have a motion for approval and a second. And now we open it up for discussion or questions.
I got some comments, Mr. Chair. Not any questions at this point. We've been talking about this at length at different work sessions, and
different times throughout the last year or so, this has been kind of a common practice that we do the non-union normally at the first of the year because of the way we have to do this with the health insurance. We need to move forward with it now. I just want to comment on the high deductible health plan. I think that is going to be a good piece to our health insurance. I was at MVAC yesterday, and they were talking about health insurance, and the cost of health insurance going up for these organizations is just astronomical. It's getting very expensive. So I think this is looking forward into the future for us to try to help control some of the cost of health costs, and I think this is it's a good plan, and I'm going to support it today.
Okay. Anybody else?
I guess I would echo that. I think I think all these things that we have done here will help us retain employees, especially the payout of the sick time. I think that will be something that will keep employees here a little longer. So I fully support all these changes.
Anybody else?
You know, I had a meeting with Bob last week. We went over this, and he answered the questions I had. I'll echo what the rest of them are saying. We have to make sure it's fair across the board for our non-union employees, so they're treated equally. Otherwise, we're going to lose them.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of employees that have been here for many, many years, and we respect them. We appreciate what they do, and they should be getting the benefits across the board. So
I would just say, Mr. Chair, that kind of echo all the comments and commend Bob and administration for working quite a bit on this, going through it, try to make it equitable to our non-union employees and along with what the union employees have. So it's a good thing all around.
Is this effective immediately, Bob, or is it?
I was just going to say, I should be clear that this would be effective January 1st to coincide with the implementation of the new plan.
and it says that going into effect January 1st.
Yeah.
It says
Right.
it's there.
Anybody else have anything? I know I have echo some of the same sentiments about this. I think there's some good ideas here. I know Bob came up with this overnight and just did it like that. There's no talking with other departments.
He's a great guy.
No talking with Josh or anybody. You know, just
Spur of the moment thing.
spur of the moment.
Well, we've discussed this a lot. Like,
No, I
like Kip said, we've talked this on work sessions, and we've had discussions a lot on this. And I know there's been discussions between Bob and the unions on this and how things. So this hasn't been taken lightly. We've had a lot of work on this.
At first, as like some of us here on the board were in a union for many years, and was hesitant about this HSA, for people that want to have the high deductible insurance. But then the more I thought about our workforce and how things are changing, and people don't necessarily stay with their employment forever. They kind of move around after 10 years or whatever, 5 years or whatever it might be. This HSA account then is portable and goes with you. And you couple that with the fact that it's a benefit that the county is actually putting money into that account annually. And initially, I wanted to know what some of those amounts are. They could change, obviously, right, Bob?
Yes.
But I think is it about $2,700?
For the family
For
coverage.
the family coverage.
Right.
It's about half of that for the single.
Yes.
And so that goes in to their account, and if they're healthy and don't need it, it still goes with them wherever they may go. They can spend that money on anything having to do with their medical care. And so I think that's a good benefit.
And the beauty with it is still extremely their choice.
Yeah.
They don't have to take that.
Right.
But a young family starting out, man, I can see that this would be an amazing benefit for them.
So it's good whenever we can offer options, I think, for employees to have things like that and to help also with our expenses as insurance rates go up.
Well, as I've talked with bargaining groups, one of the messages is we have to bring the trend line of insurance down from a, kind of a upward skyrocketing to more leveled out, because it is really becoming a significant portion of our budget, and so we have to start attending to that a little differently than we have in the past, and this is one step in a direction of trying to bend that trend line and hopefully get a little better control over those rising healthcare costs, and bringing employees really into that equation, that they need to make choices about their own health care and still providing good coverage, but yet having them recognize the cost of some of those services. And you see that happening around the state, where there's new reports out about the cost of certain procedures, that there are now studies out there that show the same procedure can cost very different amounts at different facilities, and so as healthcare purchasers, all of us need to be more attentive to those things.
Yeah, what's really driving it is the expense of our healthcare system.
That's right.
And the cost it is for going to see the doctor and having procedures done. That's what's really driving a lot of this. So, well, thank you. And then we're also, at the same motion, we're going to be approving the salary schedule of adding a step at the top and at the bottom. And then we're also doing that thing you mentioned, which is the people who've been here for 20 years will be able to cash out some of their sick time.
That's correct.
So all in one motion. Okay, anybody else? Okay.
Discussion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Bob.
In terms of informational items, we have filled the payroll and benefits coordinator position, and so that position will be filled towards the end of this month. We also have employed a senior waste management specialist. We did have an individual that completed employment as a clerical specialist in the Human Services Department, so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. Also, we received a resignation of a public health nurse and have initiated recruitment to fill that position. We also have had a couple of custody officers that have resigned, so we're back to recruiting some additional custody officers. And then lastly, a resignation of an assistant county attorney, and we've now begun recruitment to refill that position. So lots of activity in our Human Resources Department again.
Wasn't Stephen here quite a while, too?
Yeah, over 10 years, I'm sure.
11 years. Thank you. Thanks, Pat.
Where was Steve moving on to, Pat?
Scott County. This is no surprise. He lives in Belle Plaine.
Oh, my goodness.
He's driven. His wife works in Minneapolis. They've split the difference.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Well, it's bad for us, but good for him.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, then item number 9 in your packet is an application for an exempt gambling permit from the Cambria Presbyterian Church. They do a fall festival every year, and so recommending approval of that gambling permit.
Move approval.
Yeah, waiting for you. It's in your district.
That's your district. And the other one is me as a second. For gambling.
Of course, I don't know. Do we have any Presbyterians here on the board? That's my question.
That doesn't matter.
Okay, so we've got a motion for approval and a second for this gambling permit for this event that they have every year. Is there any discussion or any comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Minnesota Rural Energy Board.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is a request from the Minnesota Rural Energy Board for payment to basically shore up the PACE program, which is the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. They are requesting $6,336 from our county to put into a fund so that they are able to pay off one of the federal loans that was received for this program, which the way I understand it anyway, they're just in a cash flow problem where they want to pay off that interest-bearing loan and then utilize these funds from counties to keep the fund solvent until the payments from the beneficiaries of the loans comes in. And so we explored some options because we do have one property in Blue Earth County that took advantage of this program. We looked at could we just assume that loan or do some other arrangement, and we just couldn't come up with a solution. So I'm bringing it here today for your consideration to provide the funding requested by the Rural Minnesota Energy Board.
Okay.
And this is money that will come back to us starting in 2025. By the nature of the loans, the terms are longer to make the loans flow, and longer than the repayment of the federal money that we're using. So it'll ultimately will start coming back to us in 2025.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval, Commissioner Sternberg, and a second, Commissioner Purvis.
This is what we talked about, I think. I came up with District 7.
At 17.
Yeah, somebody came reported. Well, we've supported the program all throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about the PACE program here since I've been commissioner here for almost 9 years now, and I know we support efforts towards renewable energy and towards energy efficiency, and for people to have access to things. Businesses, this isn't just private things, this is for businesses that do things in their business to conserve energy. So it's a small amount of money, really. For a lot of other counties are involved with this too, Bob, right?
18.
Yep. So they're all kind of, everybody's contributing something.
Yep.
A share.
They've all been asked, whether they're taking the action or being, that's in front of you today.
Okay.
I mean, that's their decision, of course.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a pretty good program for some folks.
Yeah.
So, any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Item number 11 in your packet is a request from the City of Preston requesting local commitments to provide funding for a new skilled nursing veterans home in southeastern Minnesota, pardon me. The nursing home would provide local veterans in need of skilled nursing care another rural option in southern Minnesota. The other facility in southern Minnesota is in Laverne. So the City of Preston has reached out to a number of counties requesting local commitments. All the commitments from local entities would be matched by the federal government on a 2-for-1 basis, and it would be, the commitments would be used to support the size and the amenities in the new facility. I did have a chance to speak with Mike McLaughlin, our Veteran Service Officer, and he does report that in his interaction with local veterans, they do oftentimes express a desire to utilize skilled nursing care in the rural part of the state as opposed to the Minneapolis Veterans Home. And so having more options in the rural parts of the state are desirable to our local veterans. And so based on some of that, even though Fillmore County is a long ways from Blue Earth County, we do believe we'll have some local veterans that will utilize that facility, and so staff are recommending a local pledge of $10,000. That will be a one-time pledge.
Yeah.
I'll move approval. Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. A little discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I like the recommendation from Michael, but I also like the fact that it's going to leverage 2-to-1 money from the federal government. I think that's just so important that we think about that, and any, all the money they get, that'll just certainly help the whole program. So I'm going to support this today.
Okay. I guess from my standpoint, anything we can do to help our veterans is very important. So
yeah,
fully support it.
Yeah, I would mimic that. If we can help even one veteran in the county, $10,000 is pretty cheap.
Yep.
They may want to take more of a scenic route going east than to go up to the helter-skelter. Well, that's probably a strong word. A little chaotic driving up to the cities,
Oh, I know.
even though there is our van stuff. But that's how I'd look at it.
Well, I know we've got one in southern Minnesota. It's way out in western Minnesota.
Right.
You know where that is? It's
Laverne.
Laverne. Yeah, that's about
that's
probably
full.
a 3-hour drive, isn't it?
2-hour wait list.
Yeah, that's apparently
2-year wait list.
Yeah.
2-year.
Yeah, so they've got, that's the one thing that kind of clinched it for me. I mean, I didn't know what the dollar amount was that we should come in on, because they're asking for more than 10,000, but, and then of course, you know, my wife is a nursing home administrator, and so I wanted to know what the impact would be on area nursing homes. Would it have a negative effect? Because a lot of our rural nursing homes are facing issues of survival, and what would this do to them? And but then when I found out how many veterans are waiting for beds, it's not going to really probably have much of an impact. I do know, I can tell you though, that all of our rural nursing homes have veterans staying in them. And you know, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 or 15, but there's veterans that are being taken care of in our area. The thing is that the costs are quite different. So when a veteran stays in a veteran's home, they may not have to lose all of their assets. It's a much better deal for them to stay in a vet's home than in a regular standalone or corporate nursing home. So makes a difference for them, for the veterans and their families. So I support it too. I support it. So, any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And I'd like to ask, do you think we should take a little short break? In an hour?
I'm fine.
You guys okay?
Yeah, let's
Do it.
Wrap it up.
Okay.
Since we're almost done.
Well, we've got, you know,
We got
reports, we've got...
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 12 in your packet is the list of donations for the second quarter through June 30th. You'll see that in terms of dollar contributions, we did receive a large donation from the Taylor Foundation for our summer reading program, and also the City of Mapleton contributed to their library. So most of the dollars received in the second quarter were for library-related activities. We did have one donation of $250 for our dive and rescue operations as well. So total donations in that second quarter were a little over $15,000. We also had in-kind support, again, a lot of it in the library area, as well as volunteer time given to the library, and those are identified in the report, as you see. So this time we would ask for a motion to accept the donations.
Move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion for approval and a second. Is there some discussion about this?
So it's nice when people want to donate money to these causes, especially the summer reading program that reaches so many of our young people, that it's encouraging to see the community support associated with that.
Yeah, it really is.
The library's doing so good down there.
Yeah.
And with the help of the donations, and it really helps a lot.
Question I've got is, the second page, is that all in-kind estimates or, you know?
Yes, it is.
All those, okay. So those bottom ones there, therapy dogs, they come in, or Paul Butzer came in, he probably read some stories or did something. And
Right, it's a lot of time and, you know, kind of arbitrary values assigned to it, but, you know, it does represent donations that we might otherwise have to pay for.
Very nice. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries, and we accept those donations.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, then item number 13 in your packet is the financial status report for the end of July. You'll see that our total revenues are at just under $50 million compared to last year, where we were at about $52 million at this time. Total expenses are $52.8 million, so we are in a little bit of a deficit situation. Again, we're short some local property tax because of the timing of those tax collections. You will see on the expenditure side that the contract and fees line has jumped considerably from from the month before. We are seeing those bills come through as that Public Works projects and our building project has continued to move forward. So between the contracts and fees and the building and equipment purchase lines, those are things that because of the nice weather we've had over the last month or so, we're starting to see those projects really move ahead. I will remind the board that we have a deficit budget planned as a part of the government center project, so having a deficit at this point in time is not at all unexpected. The enterprise fund then is the Ponderosa landfill. You'll see revenues there are sitting at about $1.6 million and expenditures at $1 million. Again, big kind of can't speak here anymore. Peaks and valleys there really relate to the cell development, and so since we're not doing as much land improvement there this year, we are seeing that those revenues are exceeding our expenditures. The second page then are cash and investment balances. You'll see that we're sitting at about $107 million at the end of July in total county funds. This is kind of one of our higher points in the year as we get some of those state funds that come in kind of annual payments. So CPA is divided up into two payments, but the first half is received in July. Our VCA grant in Human Services is paid annually in July, so we get a little boost in July. I'd certainly be willing to answer any questions that the board might have on any of these financial status reports.
Looks good. No, it looks good. The only comment is I did get that letter. I don't know if everybody gets it or just the chair gets it and you get it, Bob. I don't know, from MCIT. We get a little refund if we're not doing horrible on some of our risk issues with unemployment and things like that. So.
Yeah, I think it just goes to the chair, but we do again receive a dividend from MCIT, and that dividend is smaller than it has been in other years, and they've been warning us of that fact, but still the reports out of MCIT is that fund is doing well and that they're able to manage risk well for counties.
I don't have the exact amount. Was it 170 something or 178?
Yeah, I don't recall.
Something like that. 170 some thousand, I think, right around there. Could be 160 something too. I just can't remember. I don't have it with me. I'm sorry. So I know in past years there's been times where it's been close to I think 300,000, hasn't it, Bob?
It has.
So that'll go into our general fund, or?
Yeah, we actually do budget for some of that dividend, and so we've been hearing the warnings from MCIT that number is likely to go down, and so we've been adjusting our budget with that in mind.
Okay. And that comes to us as a result of all the counties that are part of MCIT.
It's really the performance of MCIT in terms of claims and liabilities that they've had and what their actuaries are telling them. So, it's really largely a return to some of the premiums.
Yeah. Very good. What else do we have here, Bob?
That's all I have for administrative services.
Okay. Well, then we might as well go on to our commissioner reports on committees and boards and things. Would like to go first, Will?
I would love to go first, and mine will be very short.
Were you gone, or?
I might have been out of the country for a little while, but.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
I only have one thing to report, and yesterday I went to Cambria Township and visited with a farmer out there who has a significant erosion and drainage issue. It impacts Morgan Creek, so he asked our assistance in maybe finding some funding to fix that up. So I'll be following up with that in the next few days with SWCD and those folks over there. So that's the only thing I had.
All right,
Oh, you want me to? Well, the 7th of August, after the board meeting, the last one, that was our Skyline Night tonight, opposite time is it?
Yours is
city.
Yours is the.
And we were the 7th, and of course, the city is coming up.
What's it called? It's not Night Tonight. It's called National Night Out. That's what you're talking about, Mark. Yeah. Yeah, National Night Out.
National Night Out. Yeah. August 8th, we had Kip and I went to Mike up in the cities. Had a break this part of the summer and got to fill in on different things regarding the legislative activities or the actions of the legislature and so forth. Some of us went to the Farm Day breakfast on Saturday the 4th, and then some went to the Farm Bureau on the annual meeting on the 14th. And then August 16th, Kip and I are on election canvas board for the primary. And then I did have on the 19th, I had airport. We went to the airport. That's what it was. Airport. Breakfast to airport. 19th, that was a Sunday, yeah. I didn't have a lot of committees, just other activities.
Well, you got to do that too.
So,
you know, represent the board and right.
Represent, right? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, after our last board meeting, Mark mentioned we were at MICA, and I think the most interesting thing I got out of that conversation was Dakota County is kind of talking about maybe getting out of MICA. It's on their discussion anyways at their budgetary level at the county level. We obviously have the president is from Dakota County, and they've always been very supportive, so I don't think there's anything alarming, but it does bring up some issues because they're the largest paying county for the MICA organization. So just an FYI, I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation. Breakfast on the farm was a great turnout. I heard they fed 1,700 and had up to 2,300 people there. So great turnout, yeah. SWCD, I was at that. Everything is going pretty well. They're wrapping up some projects for the summer projects. They'll be working on getting the fall projects going. They did have another employee that decided to move on that did the book work and whatnot, because John, so he's moving on, so they are looking for another helper in their office to do the office work and bookkeeping and whatnot. I had a Warm Your Hearts meeting already. The event isn't until March, but we're already getting geared up to start working on that. Mark mentioned the Farm Bureau picnic, which Vance was there also. Had a chance to visit with Kevin Papp and we sat in on, Mark and I stayed for most of the meeting. It was a good program.
Century Farms and all that.
Yeah, the Century Farm Awards, and so it was nice to see them. Had a couple from my district, so we stayed and supported them. We did have to leave a little early because I still hadn't voted yet that day, so I had to get back to Eagle Lake and vote. But they had a good turnout there, and Mark mentioned the canvassing board, and we had that in the morning. Then that same day, I was over at the funeral for Denny Zabel. I don't know if anybody hasn't heard yet, but the past mayor and council member in St. Clair for many years, and very, very well attended funeral. The fly-in breakfast again. They figured they were going to feed about 1,200 to 1,500. Pat and Mark and I went there and got connected with Vance, and we also got the privilege of sitting with past Commissioner McLaughlin and his wife, and Michael McLaughlin, our director.
Did we have Blue Earth County?
Yeah, we had Blue Earth County was well represented. Yeah, well represented, and had a nice conversation with Michael and his family. So it was nice to get there. And yesterday, I'll wrap up my committee report with the MVAC meeting, and it was just an E&P meeting, so we talked about some employment issues, and again, the health insurance came up, and just a big increase in health insurance and struggling with how to deal with that. We don't make that decision at the board; it's done at the staff level, but they were very alarmed by it and not sure how they're going to deal with it. So, brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Can you remind me again the Warm Your Heart? event.
The soup event.
That's the soup.
Yeah, March 10th.
MVAC.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, MVAC.
MVAC,
Yep,
okay.
and we all attend, we get a table.
Yeah, yeah.
They had a good
Try all the different soups.
Yep. So we'll be, I think I'll get the date to you, but
Okay. All right. Commissioner Schoenberg.
A lot like some of the rest of them, I didn't have a lot of policy meetings, but I had a lot of different meetings that were, that we attended just to show as county commissioners. And the Farm Bureau annual meeting was at. Then I met with Bob last week. On the 15th, on the 16th, I had a TDS board meeting in St. James at their library over there. And we did a tour through their library. It's kind of nice for a small county library, very nice. 19th, we had our EAA breakfast at the airport, and that was nice to see Mark and Kip and Pat and Tom and, of course, everybody else around there. It was quite a group, quite a meeting. And then yesterday was the Wise Corn Feed at West High in Mark.
Oh, yeah.
About that.
And so I was down there and saw.
Too busy eating the corn.
Too busy eating corn. Well, I think I came early and you came later, so that was okay.
Covered it, yeah.
But so that's all I have, Chair.
Wow, that's got to be one of the shortest ones you've had.
I think last time I had one.
Did you? No, I know.
I know you'll make up for it.
Yeah, no.
So you go right
Mine's
ahead.
short. This is probably one of the shortest ones I've ever had.
Wait a
Middle of
minute.
summer.
We had somebody time at one time, remember?
It was short. Yeah, you got a timer going. Okay. I'm not starting yet.
That's good.
So our last board meeting, was August 7th. And on August 8th, I attended on Wednesday in the evening up at MSU, I still call it MSU, candidate forum for our mayor and city council. And we had full bore of candidates up there. We had over 100 people.
Wasn't I?
Were you there? Oh, yeah, you were next to me. You didn't have it on your report, though.
I did.
So that was very well attended, and it was very enjoyable to hear the candidates and people in our community who are willing to take leadership roles. I was very happy to see. On Saturday, August 11th, I went to, I belong to the Action Caucus portion of our Minnesota River Congress organization. And so that action board looks for opportunities to do things in our basin. And one of the ones we're planning for, which I had mentioned once before, is the Spirit of Water event, which is just an idea. And that is to celebrate water through music, culture, arts, everything. And we're planning that for September of 2019. So we had an action board meeting out at the Riverfront Park, because that's where it's going to be held, and that was on Saturday morning. We had about a dozen people show up to talk that are interested in leadership roles for that. August 15th, I had a meeting with Bob and Josh to review some of these HR issues and changes that are coming up that we just approved today, actually, for our handbook for the employees. And then just for a side note, some of you may know this or not know this, but my mother, who was a widow for about 9 years of my life, she used to take me to the American Swedish Institute in Minneapolis, and they had an activity going on last Saturday. And so a lot of my family, my kids and some grandchildren, we went to the American Swedish Institute, spent a big portion of the day, and the curator, my son had arranged with the curator to take out some wood carvings. My grandfather, Oscar Sjogren, who immigrated here with my mother back in about 1921. He was a well-liked, I guess, not very well-known, kind of a peasant artist and wood carver. But he could do very detailed work, too, on signs. And so he arranged to have archives opened up and for us to go down and see wood carvings that have been donated to the American Swedish Institute. And it was nice to see. I don't know, there must have been at least maybe 20, 30 of his wood carvings. And for some reason, there's a big thing going on now with these kind of one-piece hand, and it's going across the whole country and the world. And so his name is becoming very well known.
Did they let you take pictures of them then?
Yeah, I've got some on my phone I can show you. Oscar Sjogren, it's S-J-O-G-R-E-N.
You betcha.
Yeah, and my mother's name was Astrid. But it was fun. It's kind of exciting. That concludes my report. So.
It was relatively short.
Yeah. Except, the longest part of it was this thing with the American Swedish Institute, which I just thought was interesting for you to know.
Very
little tidbit.
It is interesting.
And next, we're going to recess to Uncle Albert's Cafe. It is certainly one of my favorite cafes, and it's out in Eagle Lake. Is there anything else today that we have to do?
Move to recess.
Move to recess?
Second.
Second? All right. Meeting's recessed.